And what are the initiatives taken by the government? Initiatives taken by the government to improve employment opportunities in food processing. Initiatives taken by the government to improve employment opportunities. So already in 2019, there was a question asked. The question was, what are the initiatives taken by government? Now, agriculture area, now the problem with agriculture is points may repeat in these questions. Then how do I differentiate my answer is also important. Sometimes the points will look similar. So, for example, now let's say, explain the factors influencing the decision of farmers. Okay, so one is somebody saying, yes, profit margin. Suppose if farmer is working on fruits and vegetables, etc., or exotic crops, obviously, then the margin increases by around, let's say, 40 to 60%. Okay. Is that okay? That is one. Then, okay, so now government is putting in efforts. And why are these boards set up? Basically, so that infrastructure in Bihar will also improve and there will be larger exports that will happen from Bihar. And there is emergence of superfoods. There's an emergence of superfoods like makhana, etc., which have a huge nutritional value. Millets is also growing significance now. So we have heard of millets, right? Okay, so all these have a huge export potential and they are less water dependent. For example, countries like China stopped producing rice. Why? Are able to get this. So every area, if you observe, there are a lot of issues. Then there is a problem with respect to infrastructure development. Government has come up with APMC Model Act. This index provides the view across revenue, expenditure, and debt. For example, you can see Madhya Pradesh scored well in quality of expenditure, but poorly on revenue mobilization. So MP problem with revenue mobilization, but when it comes to quality of expenditure, it was decent enough. So you are able to compare states properly based on these indicators. That is what happens. States leading in revenue mobilization, Goa, Telangana, Odisha, Maharashtra, set a benchmark for tax administration and resource generation. So these are the states where their tax to GDPs are on a higher side. That means revenue mobilization is on a higher side for certain states.
Congratulations on clearing UPSC 2024. Watching you succeed is really inspiring.
Thanks. I have been in your shoes. I know how overwhelming the start feels.
Exactly. There's so much to cover, I don't even know where to begin.
I felt the same. That's why I joined the GS Foundation course by Vision IAS, which offers structured classes, expert faculty, and regular revision. It gave me clarity and momentum.
And you stayed consistent with it?
Yes, I followed the complete roadmap offered by the course. If you're aiming for 2026, start with this course. It offers you holistic coverage with every stage of the exam covered seamlessly. This is where your journey will truly begin.
Got it. I will definitely explore the course. Where can I find the details?
Just visit their website or call on the given numbers.
Good morning. So, you have seen the question paper? So before we start the discussion, when it comes to our GS3 economics, so there are some standard themes from where the questions are asked. Okay, and will it repeat? Yes, it will repeat every time. Okay, and repetition is very common. Now this time also, we try to observe. One is the macro area, where we can talk about the impact on economy. This was the current area from where the question has come. So put it as impact on Indian economy. So every year there used to be a question on economic growth. And this year there is no question specific on growth, but the question was on impact on economy due to the changing dynamics right now. So the changing dynamics is like we are moving from multilateralism to more of protectionism. So this is basically directly linked to Trump's tariffs. So when you move from multilateralism to like bilateral or more of protectionist policies, what is the impact on Indian economy? This was the question. Okay, this was a 10 marker. So this is what I mean by, this is basically from the current. It is very much expected. If not in GS3, should have been in other papers, but it's an expected question. That means if the globe is moving towards protectionism and protectionist policies, then what could be the impact as such on Indian economy? What should we do exactly so that we strengthen ourselves? So this is the area. Okay. Another area from where the question, obviously every year it comes, is agriculture and related areas. So this time also, related areas includes food processing, land reforms. It also includes PDS, public distribution system, food security, buffer stock. Last year there was a question on buffer stock. Okay, so this year, before last year, there was a question on problems of PDS. So the theme does not change, the theme remains the same. So this year, what were the questions? The questions here were supply chain, significance of supply chain related to agri-commodity. This was one question. Okay. Then there was a repetition question that is about the scope of food processing industry. This was a repetition. This is an old question that got repeated again. And what are the initiatives taken by the government? Initiatives taken by the government to improve employment opportunities in food processing. Initiatives taken by the government to improve employment opportunities. So already in 2019, there was a question asked. The question was, what are the initiatives taken by government to make food processing more efficient? So that was taken. And 2022, this was asked. Scope of food processing. Both were combined and a new question was asked. But the point, right? So it's a repeat question. Okay, so and what are the decisions taken by farmer while selecting, or what goes in the mind of the farmer while selecting high value crops? This was a 10 marker. This was a 15 marker. Again, this was a 10 marker. So 3 questions are from agriculture and related areas every time. Last year, there was cropping pattern question. Okay, so, and before last year, PDS was there, scope of food processing was there, and that did not change. Then another important area, every year the question comes, is obviously sectors of Indian economy. Now this question can be linked, the questions related to this area can be linked to economic growth, that is the role of manufacturing sector, especially MSMEs, in terms of increasing the economic growth, okay, of India. So this was asked before last year. Okay, so, but this year, sectors of economy, there was a specific question. Now, we have to observe whenever there is a specific question, that means the difficulty level of that question is higher. So what I mean by specific question, you're asking specifically like what exactly is the benefits of or achievements of PLI scheme. So this is the changing trend that has to be observed. So if I ask you, what are the problems in manufacturing, or what are the problems in MSME, or maybe what should the government do to strengthen the secondary sector, we can write many points. But if there is a specific question on a scheme, then unless and until I have some data related to the scheme, doing complete justice becomes difficult. Okay, so this is one more area which you should observe. That means the changing trend should be observed so that I'll be able to prepare for the next year more efficiently. I think you're able to understand what I'm trying to say. So PLI scheme, production linked incentive scheme, one is achievements were asked that. I'm putting it under the sectors. So sectors, why? Because there was, of course, PLI scheme with respect to food processing separately. This is a general PLI scheme. So what are the achievements of the government in terms of PLI? What are the problems in PLI scheme? What else can be done? Now, this is an area I will put it as a specific question from current affairs. It was there in our magazine in 2-3 months also. It was there in Mains 365. It was there in regular current affairs. But probably direct question, nobody would have expected that there will be a straightforward question. Okay, so that is about the PLI scheme and achievements, etc. So this I'm putting it in the sectors. But sectors is a very important theme. This time, so sectors means I'm talking about manufacturing, secondary sector, I'm talking about the services sector as well as the primary sector and their impact on Indian economy. Okay, and what are the issues, what government measures have been taken, etc. This is another area. Another area where every time question keeps coming is this area, inclusive growth. Okay, so inclusive growth, every year there would be a question, but this time again, I'll put it as a difficult question, a little difficult because it was again specific, more specific. Okay, so whenever the questions are becoming more specific, difficulty is on a higher side in economics. That is what it is. It is you don't have any technical questions. All are English-based questions only. So inequality adjusted human development index and the regular HDI index. Okay, so which one is better? What is the differentiating factor, etc. So this was the question related to inclusive growth. So when you talk about inclusive growth, okay, so inequality adjusted HDI. This is again a specific question. Specific question. So, and then the policies of government. So it includes our fiscal policy, monetary policy, etc. These are the policies of government, etc. So here basically it was again from the newspapers, fiscal health indicators. Okay, so how do you use these index and the factors that are considered in this, and how will you decide how states are performing, performance of states, not just based on one or two factors. So one is expenditure, revenue mobilization, debt sustainability. So there are different factors you take. Since you're taking, again, it's a specific question. That means I should know what are the indicators which are there as part of this. Then only I can do justice. Of course, I can write an answer, but I can't do justice unless and until I know what are the indicators that are there here, at least to see. If I'm saying states should be checked on 5 parameters. Okay, so what are these 5 parameters you're going to take as part of this index? Okay, to check how the states are performing. For example, some states may be good with respect to the way they have spent money, but they were not so good with respect to mobilization of resources. Okay, so this is more specific in terms of this is more specific in terms of identifying where the problem lies for the states. I hope it is clear. So broadly viewing, there was no much change. If I look at previous. Now, if I look at the themes broadly, so one theme every year is the growth-related theme. This is a very common theme that used to be asked. So this year, there is no specific question on growth. If you have here, every year, there used to be a specific question on growth. These are all already asked. Already asked. All are already asked, like except one or two, everything else is asked. So role of manufacturing sector in enhancing growth. Okay, what is the role of savings? Do you think savings is an important factor for growth? What are the other things other than savings that will affect growth? That was also already asked 2018, if you've seen the question paper that was asked. What is the difference between capital intensive and labor intensive growth? And what is the role of investment in enhancing economic growth? Then they've asked potential GDP. What are the factors affecting potential GDP? So these are all asked. So this year, there was no specific question on growth. Is that okay? So no specific question on growth, but the question was on macroeconomic fundamental. Okay, so macroeconomic fundamental, that is from the current affair. So already this was asked, labor productivity. Come up with growth models where the economic growth should increase without compromising on labor productivity, 2019. Okay, so it's very important that we see how the questions were asked and now what are the basic changes that are there. One is the number of questions in economy have come down in this paper. Earlier, there used to be 8 or 9 questions, minimum 9 questions, like 110, 120 marks sometimes. Now this year it is specific, it will be 7 questions. Of course, if I put other inferred question, then it will be 8. Okay, so that is one important area which always the question used to come. So then another area is this area, as I mentioned. Every time there used to be a question on this area, that is inclusive growth. What are the elements of inclusive growth? Are you able to get this? So this is another area where questions used to be there. But this year, no question checking the concept of this. The question was inequality adjusted HDI and HDI in terms of analyzing inclusive growth. This was the question. That means it's a specific question. So what is our understanding from the paper is you have to be more specific in reading current affairs. This is what is the understanding. And you have to be more specific in reading current affairs. That is what is understanding from this paper. I hope it is clear. Okay. So this is another important theme where the question used to come. And then obviously agriculture and related areas, every year there used to be question. And this year also there is a question. So there was a question on buffer stock challenges and okay, all these are repetition questions. So if you see, this was what I was talking about, 2022. Are you able to get this? Okay, so this is the proof that UPSC also, there will be repetition of what? Previous year questions. Okay, so this was asked, already asked, and I'll show you one more. 2019, 15 marker. Policies of the government to handle the challenges. Here it is policies of the government to handle, or what are the policies to increase employment opportunities. This is very specific again. Policies of government to improve employment opportunities. So this is what is the observation. So these are the themes broadly. This year there was no question on land reforms, and so there was a question on agriculture, 3 areas, agriculture, commodities, and these kind of questions. Okay, so I hope it is clear till here. Let's move forward now. So once you've understood the previous paper and we are viewing this paper from the current perspective, okay. So this you can check how the questions have been evolving over a period of time and what could be the expected future questions. Okay, so this expectation need not be almost on that, but we should have some expectation so that we'll align our preparation. Fine. So this was the first question. What are the challenges before the Indian economy when the world is moving away from free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism? How can these challenges be met? Okay, so very much expected. Okay, so what do you think are the challenges for Indian economy when you're moving from multilateralism to more bilateral or protectionist policies, what could be the impact on Indian economy? Anybody? Broadly, what could be the impact? What are the areas that will get affected? Yes? So one is it will affect my export competitiveness. It will affect my export competitiveness. Is that okay? So that means in that C plus I plus G plus NX, this component is going to get affected. This is what in simple words, okay? So if this is going to get affected, then obviously it will have an impact on my economic growth, wider growth. Yes. What else? Foreign investment will get affected, or I can say supply chain disruptions. Okay. Supply chain disruptions. Supply chain disruption. Okay. So supply chain disruption, backward forward integration issues would be there. Procuring raw materials cost will increase. So overall our cost of production will also increase. Okay. So and then reaching the global markets also becomes difficult. So all this is part of my supply chain disruptions. Then what else? It can also affect my external sector balance. So first of all, I need some side headings. Okay, so broadly, what is the impact on Indian economy? So one is economic growth and development, export competitiveness of India. 2, 3, supply chain disruptions in the economy, supply chain disruptions, that is another factor that will get affected. Then external sector balance. So what I mean by external sector balance, so you're talking about your BOP balance. Or to be very specific, there can be an increase of current account deficits also. So external sector balance, then currency vulnerability. Currency vulnerability means it can have a negative impact on my rupee value fall. The currency vulnerability, that means rupee value can depreciate. Today you're saying 87.5, okay, 88. Tomorrow it can become 95 also because of Trump. So why? Because dollar starts becoming stronger and stronger, and it can have a negative impact on my rupee value that can have again negative repercussions. So it can have impact on another important macroeconomic indicator, that is inflation. Another macroeconomic indicator, right? So why prices are going to increase, obviously. So this is basically one, it's a very simple macroeconomic indicator that can get affected. What else? Impact on technology and... Okay, all that is imports, right? So your imports are going to become costly. That is what you're saying? Okay, so you're saying imports are going to become costly. So in the side heading of inflation itself, I'll talk about all this. Okay, I'll not write a separate side heading. First, get to the broad theme. And then why is inflation increasing? Inflation can increase because of my rupee value vulnerability. This can make my imports costly. Okay, fuel can become costly. Obviously, somebody was saying import cost of oil, etc. And somebody's talking about semiconductor. Probably semiconductor, there was a separate question already asked. Okay, so yes. What else? Forex reserve, okay. Okay. So another area, trade diversification. It's high time for India to go ahead with trade diversification. Okay, so over dependence on few countries can create a lot of trouble for India. So this is what we have to think of. And then anything else? Okay, so unemployment, or you're talking about employment opportunities or jobs. If sectors like IT get affected, etc., then, and because of this protectionism, currently tariffs are majorly affecting textiles, gems and jewelry, and all these are what? Labor intensive sectors. Labor intensive. So since they are labor intensive, then automatically it becomes very important that India has to do something for them. Otherwise, there will be job losses, unemployment problem. I hope it is clear, right? So these are all impacts that can be there. So this is a broad theme, like what could be the impact on Indian economy. Then what should we do then? How should India handle it? What should we do then? What should India do? What should be the strategy of India? Okay, so yes, somebody is saying, okay, so one is focusing on increasing domestic consumption. So make in India, selling it abroad. Let me think about C in my C plus I plus G plus NX. So I have to concentrate on domestic consumption. Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, or basically we're saying self-reliance or self-reliant India becomes important obviously now. How do you handle supply chain disruptions then? What can be done to handle supply chain disruptions? Okay, so one is strengthening the MSME sectors. Strengthening the MSMEs. So MSMEs will act as the backward integration. It will reduce our dependence on foreign imports if you are able to strengthen the micro, small and medium enterprises. So one is it, and these MSMEs to be promoted so that we will be easily integrated into the global value chain. Global value chain? Okay, so India should become part of global value chain. India should become a manufacturing hub rather than just being an assembling hub. So we have to become part of the global value chain. Okay, so we have to contribute into the global manufacturing, and for that, two things have to be done. One, obviously, we have to strengthen our micro, small, and medium enterprises without strengthening MSME. So MSMEs can act as supply chains for the bigger industries. So automatically, our dependence on other countries' imports will reduce, and Atmanirbharata will also be ensured to some extent because of the efficiency in MSME. So government schemes and programs should work towards giving easy credit facilities for MSMEs, credit guarantee programs for MSMEs, etc. That becomes very important. So MSME was also a separate growth engine in our budget. Okay, so that can be mentioned. Then what else? Okay, so diversification of trade and also signing more of bilateral agreements as we did. So we're saying India, UK, Indo-UK, okay, free trade agreements. Okay, so trade deal, we have talked about trade deals between India and UK. India should look beyond the regular markets, sign more of bilateral agreements so that the impact of trade. And then another important area, internationalization of currency. Heard of this word? So India should work towards internationalization of currency. Why? Because whenever such protectionist policies come up, US currency is still the reserve currency. So US dollar is going to become stronger, putting additional pressure on our rupee. So India, of course, in one day, you can't work towards internationalization. Slowly it will happen. For example, we have signed agreements with UAE, and we are buying oil from UAE, and we are giving them rupees and all these things. So these are all what? These are all some measures which we are doing in terms of internationalization of currency. Slowly it will happen. It will not happen. So somebody is talking about BRIC currency, but BRIC currency will not become a reserve currency immediately. Okay, so it will not become. Any reserve currency will take at least 35, 40 years. Okay, so, but still, somewhere we have to start. And diversification of trade portfolio, you can't purely depend on US and European markets. We have to look for other markets, etc. Okay, and India should try becoming a manufacturing powerhouse. Manufacturing powerhouse. Okay, and focusing on sunrise sectors. Focusing on sunrise sectors like food processing, etc. See, sunrise sectors are those sectors which are crucial for growth, economic growth, as well as development. Sunrise industries are those which are very much crucial for economic growth also, as well as economic development also. Is that okay? Clear till there? So always remember, first is, we will start, there are two ways of writing introductions, you know, one is a direct introduction, another one is an indirect introduction. So direct introduction is basically where we can come up with a data-based introduction. So I can say the impact of tariffs and protectionism can affect my GDP by almost by 0.5% in the next coming year. So this is basically you're talking about straightforward introduction where this protectionist policies of other countries or US, how can it affect the Indian economy? Are you able to get this? Okay, so when we so one is that area. So I think that thing is clear. Then, okay. So of course, this is not a data-based introduction, but we can think of a data-based introduction. That means these protectionist policies can directly have an impact on almost like 0.5% of India's GDP can get affected. Okay, so then supply chain issues, market headwinds, knock-on inputs, and then macroeconomic stability, etc. Okay, so here new challenges, what can be done? So one is you can see India's cost competitiveness, that means manufacturing powerhouse, etc. That should be done. But here and there, we have to mention some data or some schemes. This is what is the best way to write. So I need to be more specific. 10 marker, at least I'll have 10 side headings. But along with those 10 side headings, is there a chance to push some facts or schemes? For example, recently government has come up with GST, reduction of GST. Okay, faster GST refunds for MSME. There is a scheme called TREADS for MSMEs to promote MSMEs, which was there in the economic survey. Okay, so, and when we are talking about trade diversification, talking about the recent Indo-UK trade agreement, etc. So these are the things that have to be added along with some domestic reforms. That is what you have to do. Is that okay? Fine. Let's move forward. Okay. Clear? Yes. Now, agriculture area. Now the problem with agriculture is points may repeat in these questions. Then how do I differentiate my answer is also important. Sometimes the points will look similar. So, for example, now let's say, explain the factors influencing the decision of farmers on the selection of high value crops in India. This was the question. Okay. Now, first of all, why should farmer work towards selecting high value crops? This is how the answer comes. Okay, so the answer for this question will come when I start thinking, why should farmer select or work towards selecting high value crops in India? Can you give me some points? Why should farmer work towards selecting high value crops? Okay. Okay, so one is somebody saying yes, profit margin. Suppose if farmer is working on fruits and vegetables, etc., or exotic crops, obviously, then the margin increases by around, let's say, 40 to 60%. Okay, is that okay? That is one. Then huge export potential. Huge export potential. So there are certain high value crops. So if you keep on selling only cereals, okay, so your margins will always be limited. Your margins will increase when there is some value addition, number one. If you're selling basmati, your margins are a little higher. Okay, so you're selling cocoa, your margins will be further higher. Suppose in African countries, there was a reduction of supply. There was some problem in Africa. And then our farmers shifted towards producing cocoa and started exporting it to these African countries. Okay, or because of increasing urbanization today, there is something like higher demand because of health conscious people looking for avocados and these kind of entities. Okay, so when we look at the dragon fruits, okay, so what are these? These are highly nutritious and people are ready to pay extra to buy these items. So, but at the same time, that means farmer will be able to think beyond mandi. Farmer will be able to think beyond mandi. So when you start thinking beyond mandi, that means there will be expansion of market base for the farmer. expansion of market base for the farmer, thinking beyond mandis. And because of that reason, the farmer will have a better bargaining power. Farmer will have a better bargaining power once he starts thinking beyond mandis. When you start thinking beyond mandis, then you can also sign forward contracts with corporates. So forward contracts with corporates, suppose you're talking about farmers who are supplying potatoes, so potatoes to Pepsi company. So there is a specific kind of potato, which is a patented potato, which you have to supply. So Pepsi only wants this kind of potato. Let's say the farmer is backward integrated with Pepsi, so he's part of the supply chain of Pepsi now. So two things will happen. One, middlemen will be eliminated. So once middlemen are eliminated, farmers' income will also increase. That means another benefit can be, it helps in doubling farmers' income. So doubling farmers' income, how? One is, when there is a huge export potential, there will be a spillover effect on farmers' income. That is one. Second is, middlemen can be eliminated if you are becoming part of the supply chains, etc. Then when we look at profit margins, if farmer is focusing on fruits, vegetables, and exotic areas, the profit margin is almost like more than 40% in comparison to cereals. So that is the reason he has to look for high value crops. What else? Okay. So another, of course, government support. So government is providing support right now. So government is saying, see, government policy, for example, if you look at government policy itself. So Ashok Dalwai committee came up with, in 2018, doubling farmers' income. And one of his main mention there is, farmers should focus more on allied sectors and not pure crops. So I have to focus on allied sectors. Maybe a farmer should expand his base, focus on dairying, focus on horticulture, focus on other areas if you want to double farmers' income. Then he also says, if you want to double farmers' income, along with increasing agricultural growth rate, you also have to increase agricultural exports. Almost, he talks about this 30 billion to 60 billion. And from 60 billion, increase it to 100 billion by 2030. This is what he says. So agriculture exports have to be increased, means value addition becomes crucial. You can't just focus on cereals and increase your agricultural exports. That's not possible. So if you have to increase agri exports at a faster pace, this becomes crucial, this becomes important. So doubling farmers' income is another aspect. Widening the market base, thinking beyond market, or focusing on more remunerative areas other than the basic crops. That is the reason farmers should focus. Okay, so what else? Okay, backward and forward linkages. Okay. Storage system. Okay. Cold storage system. Yeah, see, the question is, more infrastructure, efficient infrastructure is required. Farmer is emerging on digital platform. Okay. So, did they ask this? Why farmer has to? What is the question? What are the factors influencing farmer while selecting? So now tell me, what are the factors that will influence? One factor that is influencing is what? Profit margin. Okay, that is one. Okay, stability of income, that is also there. Then external demand. Export is one, means how will you get exports? External demand. So how will you get exports? External demand. This depends on what factors? It depends on factors. Let's say in Africa, there was a shortage of supply of certain crops. Then we can supply. So this is about the external demand. So external demand depends. Okay, so then, so here government support also in the budgets and emergence of these superfoods today. So she's talking about Makana, and in the budget also there was discussion of Makana board. Okay, so Makana board was established where? In Bihar, right? But largest exporter of makana even today is Punjab. Okay, so now government is putting in efforts. And why are these boards set up? Basically, so that infrastructure in Bihar will also improve and there will be larger exports that will happen from Bihar. And there is emergence of superfoods. There's an emergence of superfoods like makana, etc., which have a huge nutritional value. Millets is also growing significance now. So we have heard of millets, right? Okay, so all these have a huge export potential and they are less water dependent. For example, countries like China stopped producing rice. Why? Highly water intensive crop. They started importing rice. Okay, so now we also have to think beyond producing basic rice or exporting wheat. We have to think beyond cereals. Okay. So one is you're not dependent on water, then you have a faster yield. That is what she's trying to say. Okay, so and you have a better market. I hope it is clear, everybody. So first of all, when you see a question, two things have to be kept in mind. In economics, very simple. There's no complication in the question. Question is simple. It's not like the SNT questions or where you have something complicated here. But 10 marker, do I have 10 to 11 solid points? Number also. One solid intro, one solid conclusion. And do I have some data to fill it? Can I write some committees to tell him that I know about Ashok Dalwai? It's all about that only. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, so of course, this is just to show you the side headings. So one is, which of the factors? One is the relative profitability, okay? Then demand, market demand. Global factors, obviously, you have to decide based on the demand. And then increasing urbanization today. So because of increasing urbanization, what is the benefit basically? So people are ready to pay that extra rupee to buy high value products. And when we talk about such kind of product, for example, when you talk about kiwi or dragon fruit, exotic items, and there is huge government subsidy, there's huge business potential. Huge business potential also today. Okay, so this is something like the government support and modern access to modern technology. So here, when we talk about modern technology, for example, indoor mushroom cultivation in India. Now modern technology is making things possible. So this is something like modern agriculture technologies like precision farming tools, etc., irrigation systems significantly influence the crop choices. Okay, so and today there is this superfood branding, GI tag, talking about makana and referring to budget very clearly, and government policies will give us marks. Got the point? Is that okay? Yes? Okay. Clear till there, right? These questions are okay. There's no much of difficulty. Of course, we have to write a good answer, but at the same time, we can write something. There's a difference between, there are some questions where we can't, even for the PLI scheme, we can write something. But trouble comes up when we have to quote what? Data. Everybody's saying PLI scheme is easy. We can write, sir. I've written. But the question is, do you really know how much of investment has come up with us because of PLI? Are you able to get this? This is where trouble comes up. That is where we have to prepare a data sheet. A separate data sheet has to be prepared. Otherwise, answer will not be specific and therefore we will get less marks. Simple. Is that okay? Fine. Now see here, elaborate the scope and significance of supply chain management of agriculture commodities in India. So, first of all, when we talk about supply chain of agriculture, this is, see that UPSC directly pulls questions from the lines in the syllabus. In economics, 90%, of course, you may say, sir, human development, of course, that was a current affair linked question. Okay, but otherwise, 4 questions out of 7, they are directly pulled from the lines in the syllabus. This is what you should understand. Earlier, it used to be 6 questions being pulled out of 8, directly from the lines in the syllabus. Scope, significance, like that. So now, specifically, it mentions supply chain management related to food processing and agriculture, very clearly mentioned in the syllabus. So the question here is supply chain management, scope and significance of supply chain in agriculture commodities. Can you tell me how an agriculture supply chain looks like? Got the point? Got the question right? Okay, so how does a supply chain of agriculture look like? Inputs, then using these inputs, farmer comes up with output, but harvest. Is that okay? Then once farmer is not happy here also, once the output is there, farmer has some options. One option, I will go to, where do I go? Mandi. Okay. Or if another option, I have to look for cold storage. Here also farmer has problems. Farmer problems can be is that okay? Loss, harvest losses. Then what else? Now farmer wants to add value, then there can be focus on processing. Are you able to get this? Okay. Then after processing directly, you can't get into the market. Then it is marketing. And marketing and through distribution network, the farmer will reach the final customer, let's say here. It can be export also. Is that okay? Now, when we look at basic, so inputs can be what? Inputs can be seeds. Inputs can be fertilizers. Irrigation related aspects, yes. So are there any government schemes to strengthen this area? Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, more crop per drop. Okay. Then anything here? Nutrient-based subsidy programs. Of course, this was a failure in 2010. Are you able to get this? Now you're talking about what based urea? So basically government is working at the fertilizer level. There is a lot of uncertainty to the farmer and therefore there should be income support for the farmer. For income support, are there any Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi? That means there is no consistency. There is always risk for the farmer. So Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Is that okay? That's an income support program for land owning farmer, isn't it? Okay. Then though the crop comes to the hand, there is no guarantee. There is no guarantee. So there should be some kind of insurance, etc. So government talks about Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Are you able to get this? So at every level in the supply chain, for a farmer, there are a lot of issues, including post-harvest losses. Including post-harvest losses, there is a trouble for the farmer. So government has come up with Agri-Stack, if you know, in the recent. So Agri-Stack is basically you're coming up with like a digital public infrastructure and you're giving separate ID cards for the farmer, etc. So this is, then farmer problems with respect to credit system, getting loans, etc. Then you have the Kisan credit cards. Are you able to get this? So every area, if you observe, there are a lot of issues. Then there is a problem with respect to infrastructure development. Government has come up with APMC Model Acts. Remember APMC Model Acts? So to make mandis more efficient, enhance the efficiency with respect to the agriculture, marketing, etc. Yes. So we're talking about, so when we talk about increasing the bargaining, creating a national market for agriculture, e-technology for the aid of farmer. 2 years back, this was the mains question. So everything rotates there only. Everything will rotate somewhere here in the supply chain. So how will e-technology will aid the farmer? This was the question that was already asked. Got the point? Okay, so AgriStack is basically you're talking about an IT infrastructure completely, so that the efficiency for the farmer is going to increase. So at the processing level, you have many schemes under the food processing. Okay, so and then you're talking about PPPs to build cold storage facilities and warehouses for the farmer, so that the food wastage will less. Processing is part of? Yeah, value chain, yes. See here, basically, if I extend, yes, it directly from here, the farmer can sell. But if I can extend the supply chain, if the farmer gets integrated, then obviously, yes, processing can also be. Processing can be, it can be pure grading also. It need not be huge value addition. So when I talk about grading and sorting, that is also processing. We call it as primary processing. So what is grading? Grading as per quality. Okay, so what is sorting? Basically, you can't, suppose you want to export something, your grain should not be of different size. Everything should be of same size. So I'm coming up with grading based on quality, etc. That can also be seen as part of my primary processing. Are you able to get this? Is that okay? So it's not that processing means, there is a wheat biscuit coming out of it. That is tertiary processing. That is tertiary processing. Huge value addition. But even grading, cleaning, sorting, these things are also part of the processing. Is that okay? Of course, for this straight away, we can start with the data-based introduction. What is the data-based introduction here? Agriculture contributes to around 16. In the last 5 years, let's say agriculture contributes to 18% of GDP. Or recent data, 16% of GDP, and employs almost like 46% directly and 60% indirectly. So this is a straightforward introduction, which is a data-based introduction. Okay, so inputs, production, investing, harvesting and sorting, storage, processing, transportation, marketing and distribution. Is that okay? So here when we look at crop planning, input use, farming practices, all that for producing. Then harvesting, timely harvesting, followed by sorting, grading of produce. Storage, the produce is in warehouses, cold storage facilities, etc. Then processing, value addition through cleaning, packing, etc. And transportation, moving the produce from farms to market, and these things. So now what is the significance? Now significance, if there is proper supply chain with respect to agri commodities, then what is the benefit? See, there is one data also which shows for every 1% growth of agriculture, it is 2 to 3 times more effective in reducing poverty in comparison to secondary sector or tertiary sector. That means every 1% growth in agriculture will ensure a wider inclusive growth. That is the reason no economy or no government should be neglecting agriculture, and agriculture should be of prime most importance if you have to achieve inclusive growth. This is what the data shows. So one is important aspect here, of course, what is the significance of the supply chain? One is the quality will increase, quality and hygiene will increase, export quality will also come up. Along with all that, food security, smooth flow of commodities and post-harvest losses will also decrease if there is a proper supply chain. Then doubling farmers' income, reduces wastage, improves market access, and reduces dependence on middlemen. Supply chain is efficient. And then if you're able to think beyond mandis, or if you're able to bring reforms in mandis, then middlemen are going to reduce. Reducing post-harvest losses. Of course, here we'll talk about e-NAM, efficiency in infrastructure, improvement in cold storage facilities, PEG scheme brought in by government, private entrepreneur guarantee scheme, where you're bringing in PPP finance to build infrastructure. Okay? Or Pradhan Mantri, In the food processing sector, there is a 360-degree scheme which works on cold storage facilities, warehouses, etc. Which scheme is that? Is there any scheme in the food processing? PLI is anyhow there. No, national, no. Okay, we'll talk about it when we do talk about food processing. Okay, so fine. Employment generation and price stabilization. See, price stabilization is basically when it balances supply-demand shocks by enabling storage and efficient movement. Okay, so obviously if the logistics are efficient, then the products can be sold at decent prices. So one is price stabilization as well as quality and hygiene. Okay, inclusive growth. So these are the side headings if you see here. So inclusive growth, every 1% growth in agriculture is more effective, 2 to 3 times more effective than secondary sector and tertiary sector. And agriculture efficiency is directly linked to supply chain efficiency. Is that okay? Then strengthening agriculture through infrastructure, technology, institutional reforms and PPP will be helping in achieving SDG 2, that is zero hunger. Of course, it's a 10 marker. So one is I should be able to explain the supply chain, and then what is the significance of a strong supply chain. So what is the significance of strong supply chain? Reducing post-harvest loss, doubling farmers' income, inclusive growth, and increasing employment opportunities, greater export potential due to value addition and better processing. This is how things go. Is that okay? Yes. Then what else? Scope. See, scope and significance here. Here, scope and significance. What is the difference between significance and scope? Significance is more like importance. Okay. Scope is what is the potential that is still there. But since it's a 10 marker, now it becomes difficult. For example, let's say India being the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables, but hardly 5% of fruits and vegetables are processed. So when I look at the processing area where in this supply chain, there is a long way to go. This is what is scope. Okay. Now you're expecting that there is a huge amount of investment that is going to move into the agriculture sector by 2030. Okay, so that is what scope. Scope is what potential still is left in this supply chain is what is scope. Significance is what? Importance. Okay, so but when it comes to, but the problem is, for example, if I write scope and significance, so when I write the supply chain itself, I can have to mention the data. So I'll be mentioning the data. What is the data I will mention? Even today, though, when it comes to processing, what are the problems? For example, when it comes to infrastructure, that means when it comes to ENAM and APMC amendment. So APMC amendments have helped in terms of bringing in efficiency, but it has not been implemented in all the states effectively. So there is some amount of improvement also, and there is some amount of thing which you have to reach. So that is what is scope. Is that okay? But if it would have been a 15 marker, then I will write scope, separate 5 points, significance, another 6 points, and then an intro and a conclusion. But I think it's only a 10 marker. Is that okay?
UPSC Mains demands more than just knowledge. It requires the art of presenting that knowledge clearly, concisely, and convincingly on paper. Without the right approach, even well-prepared content can fall short. You need structured guidance to overcome bottlenecks and translate your preparation into well-structured, impactful answers. Vision IAS present a specially curated offline and online masterclasses for answer writing in Delhi. It offers 5 focus sessions to build strong answer writing fundamentals, craft impactful introductions and conclusions, use examples, data and illustrations effectively, practice through live demonstrations, receive personalized feedback on evaluated assignments, learn proven strategies from UPSC toppers. Attend the free orientation on 18th August. with the classes starting from 19th August at 5 p.m.
Okay. Now, this was asked earlier also. Now, this is a 15 marker. Examine the scope of the food processing industries in India. Elaborate the measures taken by the government in the processing industries for generating employment opportunities. Is that okay? So now coming to this question. So two parts are there. So one is examine the scope of the food processing industry in India. Now there is a slight difference between scope and significance. Okay, so, but of course, it becomes a little difficult to bifurcate. What is the meaning of scope? The potential it still has. Okay, what is the meaning of significance? Importance. For example, tell me some points which talk about the importance or significance of food processing industry. Got the question? Okay, so tell me some points which will talk about the significance of food processing industry. One, doubling farmers' income. Okay, how will farmers' income will double? More export potential. You're part of the supply chain of the food processing. Post-harvest losses will decrease. You need not depend much on middlemen, direct connectivity with the processing unit, so farmer income will increase. You're not going to pay mandi fees multiple number of times, which is the problem in the mandis. Okay, then when exports of food processing sector increase, then there is a higher demand for agriculture products. When there is a higher demand for agriculture products, farmer will be able to get better price for his agri commodities. Because of all these reasons, farmer's income is going to increase. Is that okay? Then what else? Another side here, yes, agreed. That is also a right point. Food security, increasing shelf life, reducing post-harvest losses. So food can be stored for a longer period. Okay. Another important, fortification, etc. It also reduces malnutrition. It also reduces malnutrition. Why fortification? Vitamin D fortified milk and all this. Okay, so automatically malnutrition is a big problem in India. So that can also be handled to some extent because of food processing. Then what else? So increase in employment generation, or we can put it as employment transition becomes more easy. Transition means I can shift labor from primary sector to the food processing sector. And when I do that, it will also help in reducing something called as disguised unemployment. So if it helps in reducing disguised unemployment, and simultaneously it helps in improving labor productivity. Helps in improving labor productivity. Okay, so huge export potential. That means external sector balance, positive impact on external sector balance. It will have an impact on exports. Obviously, processed food have. And food processing is a sunrise sector which will help in developing both GDP growth as well as development. And it was identified as sunrise sector by the 12th five-year plan. Identified as sunrise sector by the 12th five-year plan. Are you able to get this? So 12th five-year plan has identified it as a sunrise sector. On one side, it helps in inclusive growth. Okay, on the other side, it also contributes to economic growth. So if you know about certain programs, like you have heard of Mega Food Park. So Mega Food Park directly provides employment to more than 10,000 people. So there is a direct correlation, and food processing sector is labor-intensive sector. So labor-intensive sector, and it helps in creation of employment opportunities. Is that clear? But now, is it, then when I say scope and significance, there's a slight difference, but generally people take it as scope and significance. But scope is little different. If I have to look at scope, what is scope? Extent of improvement, or you can say what is the potential still there when it comes to the processing sector. For example, I'll show you. Okay, so there are some keywords in these agriculture related topics. Obviously the keywords you can bring up in the conclusions. One is the doubling farmers income, sunrise sector and effective transition of Indian economy, or doubling agricultural exports through value addition, labor intensive and enhancing my demographic dividends. There are some keywords which we'll try bringing in the conclusion to make our answers more effective. Okay, so this is all prepared beforehand only. So whenever an agriculture food processing question comes up, what are the keywords or schemes I will bring up in my conclusion? So that he will give me half extra mark. That's already prepared because it's already asked question. So we are already ready to impress. Ready to impress. Already everything is there in the mind. So already done. So obviously we'll use some keywords to convince. I hope it is clear. Okay, so now, when we look at the opportunities still there in the processing industry, there's still some opportunities there's still some scope that exists in the processing. So for example, if you see, there is a huge domestic demand that is increasing right now for processed food because of expanding urbanization. Expanding urbanization, value-seeking urban consumer is ready to pay that extra money to buy nutritious and convenience products. This is what is happening right now. So health and value-seeking consumer, then potential to attract $33 billion investment in the next 10 years. It has the potential to attract $33 billion. That means there's a huge growth potential still there with respect to the food processing industry. There is huge untapped market in the processing industry. What I mean by untapped market, for example, let's say India is second largest producer of fruits, but hardly has 2% of the produce being processed. Or even with respect to marine, also 8%, or milk, only 35% milk is processed. That means there's a huge potential left in terms of processing industry. Still, are you able to get this? Okay, so one is significance, another one is scope. There is a slight difference. So maybe in one paragraph, I should be able to mention the importance or the growing scope of the food processing industry. Because the question specifically says scope. Is that okay? The question is specifically saying scope. Clear till there? Yes? Yes. Concern, challenges. Okay, challenges I'll tell you, but did they ask that question? No. So if I want to mention challenges, what are the challenges in the processing industry? But I'll not write it, and I'll write it only when I don't have content. Got the point right? I don't have content to fill, then I will write. Is it mention challenges? No. Okay, so I will write when I don't have content, but see here, what are the challenges means most of the processing industries are in the, where are they? In the unorganized sector. So problems like, what are the problems? One is branding is there, advertisement is not there, okay? That is a problem, okay? And our lack of economies of scale, lack of economies of scale. Unorganized segment, that is one problem of the processing industry. What else are the problems? Okay, long and fragmented supply chains. That means long and fragmented supply chains means, so you don't have effective backward and forward integration, okay? Then problems related to infrastructure, lack of effective infrastructure. It includes both something like the cold storage facilities or warehouses, all this, okay? All problems related to agriculture related problems will also be problems for food processing industry. Problems related to agriculture will also be problems for food processing. Why? Because the input sector or the backward integration. For example, in India, the agricultural yield, if I compare with BRICS countries, etc., agricultural yield is a problem. Agriculture marketing related issues are there in India. Okay, even today our agriculture is mostly rain-fed agriculture. All these are problems. Okay, so since agriculture is a state subject, you still don't have proper contract farming rules across. Contract farming rules are not uniform. No uniformity in contract farming. Contract farming means the company is signing agreements with the farmers. So you don't have uniform contract farming rules, and that applies to the processing industries. You don't have uniformity with respect to all these because agriculture. That is the reason Ashok Dalwai says, put agriculture marketing in concurrent list, though agriculture is a state subject. This was also one of his recommendations to solve some problems. Then another problem in food processing industry is problems related to credit loans to the unorganized processing industries. So I'm talking about institutional loans. To handle this, government has put food processing industry into priority sector lending targets. Measures have been taken. Okay, so measures have been taken. What else? What are the other problems? Low private sector participation is there, but you don't have new entrepreneurs taking up risk. So this is called as effective manpower is not there. So manpower problem is not just about skilled labor. One problem of manpower is lack of availability of skilled labor. That is one. Another problem is lack of entrepreneurship also. You don't have business people who are taking risk, though government is giving incentives with respect to processing industry. So they feel it is risky. Why should I enter into the processing industry? They're not so keen with respect. The government is giving huge subsidies and still entrepreneurs are not willing to go ahead. Okay, so then problems with respect to Food Safety Standards Authority. Like this, if you write, many are there. Food Safety Standards Authority of India comes up with standards, and there is a discrepancy between Indian food standards versus international standards. Indian food standards versus international standards. Okay, then you can't, what is the problem? You can't export. Okay, everybody is in an unorganized sector. They can't adhere to the non-tariff barriers of other countries. Especially non-tariff barriers of other countries means you can't export it to European countries or US. You may export it to Taiwan and other countries, but where the non-tariff barriers are on a higher side, there are higher regulations, restrictions. So there you are losing on with respect to exports, etc. Are you able to get this? Then many problems are there. In the mega food parks, there are some collection centers. Okay. Cooperatives like Amul, they are not so keen in terms of getting themselves integrated into the mega food park. So mega food park logic is what? It will build an effective supply chain. Effective supply chain. But that effective supply chain is not getting built because of lack of participation of certain cooperatives. Adhering to the state guidelines and paying state-related taxes was also a problem at the state level. So like this, if I look at food processing, there are a lot of problems. To solve each problem, government has programs. So first of all, what is the problem here? Economies of scale. Economies of scale means bigger companies will be price competitive. Bigger companies can procure raw materials at less. They procure raw materials in bulk, and therefore cost per unit will be less. So my cost of production will be less. My price will be less. So smaller companies, unorganized sectors, they cannot compete with MNCs. So Indian food processing sector is less price competitive. This is the problem. Less price competitive. I'm not price competitive. That is because you don't have all this. Like, is that okay? But this I will not write. If I want to show this, I'll show it in a flowchart. Got the point? Since it's a 15 marker, I want to show it. I want to show this also. Suppose you want to show. Then show it in a flowchart. Don't expand this if it is not asked. Since somebody has asked, I've mentioned. But otherwise, that's not asked. But I don't know the answer. Then I will write. I'll fill the sheets. I know the answer. I'll show this as a flowchart. That's it. Is that okay? In spite in spite of scope and significance, food processing industry even today struggles with problems like ineffective supply chains, comma, lack of export potential, comma, like that. It should not be more than 3 lines or 4 lines. Or maybe I'll show it as a flow chart. It is like a connecting link only. Is that okay? Yes. But sir, we are only able to write one side of the page. Then what to do? Then show your skill. Okay, so that is how it is. No, it is all about that only. So then we're not able to fill the sheet. Then what has to be done? Because I don't know the scheme, then what should be done? Then that's a different case altogether. I'll show you some data only. Missed it somewhere. Okay. So scope, I think it is clear. So importance basically contribution to gross value addition, employment, export enhancement, but this is not sufficient. You have to write more. Obviously, it's a 15 marker, isn't it? So it's a 15 marker, then I will think of 7 to 8 points for each part if it is possible. Okay, so I will show 15 side headings minimum. No, sir, you may say, sir, number is important, means yes. Number is important. Some may say, no, sir, I've written great points. What is so great in processing, I'll ask. Okay, so that you have shown your talent. Okay, so there you have shown, but I want 16 so that he will not feel like I have to give that half mark extra. Then, okay, fine, take it. Because schemes are mentioned, 15 side headings are there, intro is there, conclusion is there. So in the mock tests also, our practice should be same. 10 marker, 10 side headings minimum, try. Then we'll land up with 7 or 8. Then pull the side heading with a data or a scheme. Initially, data may not come for every point. Out of 9 points, only 5 points there may be data. Some point there may be scheme. But something I'm showing other than English. I think you got my point. Other than English, I have to show something, that there is some economics. These are all general questions, they're not core economics. Is that okay? Yes. Fine. So here, there is some specific schemes here mentioned with respect to boosting employment. So things that can be recollected. Heard of one district, one product? Okay. Specific PLI scheme with respect to food processing industry. There's a specific production link to create global food champions. Okay. Then Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. So this is a comprehensive 360-degree scheme where you have mega food parks in it, focus on cold storage, integrated cold storage facilities, focus on human capital, human resource, okay, developing agri value chains, etc. All this is part of this. It's a 360. That means it is definitely going to strengthen the supply chain. Okay, so Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, this directly has an impact on creating 4 lakh jobs. Are you able to get this? Now, sir, do we have to write the exact number? No. But you can't write 50,000. Got the point, right? We'll be more optimistic. Yeah, government would have done something. So definitely it would have been in lakhs in the exam condition. I don't know, like 50,000 jobs. No. Take a big guess. Okay, take a big guess, 2 lakhs plus. Yes. Generally, government projects that, no? So the very common logic there is any employment-related aspect. For example, 1 mega food can create more than 10,000 jobs. Okay, so 1 mega food. park can create more than 10. And mega food park is one entity in this Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Okay, so that means there's a huge potential for employment generation. Now students will have this doubt, sir, how can we remember that there were so many projects? Nobody will remember. Government has committed to more than 1,000 plus projects, accounting to 3 lakh plus jobs. Fantastic, nothing wrong on it. So exactly nobody can remember in the exam condition like how many jobs got created. Is that okay? Yes. So strengthening of sector skill council. So here basically focusing on strengthening skills, development of national occupational standards, identifies job roles and competencies, then production linked incentives, etc. There are many other schemes also, one district, one product, etc. Okay, specific scheme called as mega food parks, etc. Okay, then of course they're not directly linked to employment. Directly linked to employment is few schemes, but directly food processing has a lot of schemes. Okay, so but directly linked to employment is only few schemes. I'll show you. So for example, if we can see here, mega food park scheme was there. Food processing was put under priority sector lending. This is to handle the credit problems, okay, in the processing industry. Okay, so PLI scheme for food processing. PM formalization of micro food processing enterprises scheme. This is basically to mainly handle that unorganized sector problem. So most of the processing industry is an unorganized sector. So you have to formalize it. How do you do it? What are you going to do? So credit and payments related aspects were also handled recently. So dedicated grievance cell was pushed in. Okay, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada, PLI, Pradhan Mantri formalization of micro food processing, and then one district, one product. Like this, you have a lot of programs. Is that okay? Yes? I think nobody can say, sir, I don't have economics background to write answers for these questions. Because if you see, there was not even a single question which is technical in nature. Of course, there was a specific question. I agree that there is a specific question, but there is no technical question. That's all about mains. In future also, there will never be technical questions in the exam. Okay, so now this is, in the sectors of economy this year, this is a specific question. See this, discuss the rationale of production-linked incentive. What are its achievements? In what way can the functioning and outcomes of the scheme be improved? Okay, now, this we are not going to mention. What are the main problems of manufacturing sector in India? Our thought or side headings will come from there. I think you got my point, right? If I think what are the problems in the manufacturing sector, then PLI scheme can handle few of those problems. And PLI scheme would have achieved few things with respect to that. Okay, what are the main problems of our manufacturing sector? Anybody? Labor is okay. No. First of all, what is the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP? Oh, skilled labor is okay. What is the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP, I'm asking? 27. 17. 27 is only manufacturing. Manufacturing is part of our secondary sector. Okay. One of the problem is muted manufacturing. Muted manufacturing means 1990s also manufacturing contribution to GDP was 15 to 15.5. Today also manufacturing contribution to GDP is 17%. That means contribution of manufacturing to GDP is not increasing. This is muted manufacturing. PLI scheme should also handle this problem of muted manufacturing. It should increase the contribution of manufacturing to GDP. Are you able to get this? Then what else? What are the other problems in manufacturing in general? All English only. Lack of investment is okay. Lack of labor, lack of investment, all that is okay. Use some economic hits, no? high legal compliance. Okay. That's all. Environmental concern. More Indian society type answers you're telling. Okay, so environment is also there. I understand. See, high taxes. Okay, so inverted duty structure. Okay. Okay, so inverted duty structure means, what is this inverted duty structure? No. Suppose I want to manufacture this pen. So when let's say I'm in simple words, I'm not even using GST. If I want to manufacture this pen in India, and I want to import raw materials from outside. The tax on raw material is high, but if I'm buying straight away pen from outside, the tax on finished product, that is the pen, is lower. So there is less motivation to produce in India. Why? Because raw material, it is more motivating to import the pen from outside. This has demotivated manufacturing within the country. This is called as inverted duty structures. Of course, the tax-related aspects and incentives, production-linked incentives. So when I produce in India and if I start exporting, is then an incentive given in terms of tax benefits is what I have to think. Whether this scheme will also resolve problems related to inverted duty structures and promote more manufacturing within the country. This is one problem, inverted duty. Tax, agree, tax only. What else could be a problem? Logistics. Why people come and produce in India? What are the reasons for somebody, other than PLI, why should somebody come and produce iPhones in India? Cheap labor is not there in Mexico. And which Mexico is more closer to US or we are more close? Transportation cost will be lower if they produce in Mexico, or transportation cost is lower if I produce in India? I'm just asking. One is availability of market is there, and that is why they are coming. Okay, so once I produce also, export is one aspect, but there is a huge domestic demand that is available, and therefore I'm taking that pain to come to India. But the problem with PLIs is also, our target of PLI is to create a manufacturing hub, make India. But India is more becoming like an assembling hub. That is also one more problem. Another problem is labor laws. Okay, so stringent labor laws. Economic survey is also talking about labor laws today. And labor laws, what is the problem? They're talking about extreme flexibility with respect to labor hours also. Extreme flexibility with respect to labor hours means what? That means, suppose annually, a labor can work so many hours. Now, I'm not going to measure it on a daily basis. So that whenever there is work, I'll make him work more. And whenever there is no work, probably he's working less than 8 hours. But if you're saying, whatever may be the situation, you should not make him work more than 8 hours. You're restricting me, which is not the case in Vietnam. Vietnam also follows labor laws. But there is more flexibility in the labor laws of Vietnam. And most of these labor-intensive sectors, our competition is these countries like Vietnam only. So if our labor laws are not in line with these countries like Vietnam, then we will not be producing labor-intensive products. Are you able to get this? And will not be. And moreover, our tariffs are also now higher than these countries right now when it comes to US. So we need to become more efficient, and labor laws should become more liberal in line with. Okay, that means the labor laws and operation mechanism when it comes to PLIs or SEZs, is it different or is it same when it comes to the other manufacturing units? Are you able to get this? So this is something like your work. There are a lot of other problems also in manufacturing. What are the other problems? Technology integration or lack of spending on research and development. India is still not getting properly integrated with the global value chains. For example, Apple iPhone, we are saying, okay, so batteries are coming from France, China is assembling it. What are we doing? Are we only becoming an assembling unit? Are we thinking beyond assembling? Okay, will PLI scheme help India to move from the middle income trap? Okay, so right now we are stuck in the middle income trap. India is a lower middle income country. Lower middle income country. China is a higher middle income country. Any country which has moved from middle income to high income, it has not happened. Either you should have great natural resources like Kuwait, or you should be doing complex manufacturing. Without these two, some countries with great natural resources, for example, I talk about Peru, or maybe you're talking about the Muslim nations. So you have some natural resource which is not found elsewhere, can be a reason, or it should be complex manufacturing which has been adopted by countries like South Korea. South Korea is a high income country today. How did South Korea go there? It is because of complex manufacturing. So whether our PLI scheme really help us to go ahead with complex manufacturing like the mobile phones, or is it that you're only going to end up as an assembling hub? So only when you do complex manufacturing, you are out of what? Middle income trap, or else we are stuck in the middle income track. Resources wise, of course, we don't have so much of natural resources which are of great demand outside that using resources we will become high income country. We have to adopt manufacturing. Without complex manufacturing and high value manufacturing, India cannot become a high income country. So whether my PLI scheme will support. Another aspect is obviously employment generation. And today also the contribution of manufacturing in terms of employment is less. Even today, 46% of the population are still dependent on agriculture. And let's say 35% of the people are getting jobs from the services sector. And AI is fast replacing the services sector. And therefore, probably my manufacturing has to become more effective in terms of creating jobs. So will PLI schemes really create employment opportunities, etc.? Are you able to get this? Another aspect is, as far as manufacturing exports are concerned, India is not so good in manufacturing exports. Our top exports are IT, software, and these kind of aspects, not manufacturing. So therefore, there is huge amount of deficit when it comes to manufacturing. We import more, and our exports with respect to manufacturing. We have not created a brand called India when it comes to manufacturing products. Brand India, we call it as. For example, when you think of Japanese product, you say quality. When you think of a Chinese product, you say cheap. Okay, so like that. German, known for technology or engineering or something like that. But what about Indian manufacturing? When I say Indian manufacturing or Indian product, what is that comes to your mind? Price is coming, quality is coming. What is coming to your mind? So is the question. So that is called as creating brand India across the globe. So will such schemes help in creating and establishing brand India? Will PLI scheme be helping MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises? Are you able to get this? Okay. So it will help, but well, let's see what Japan will do. Okay, so okay, we'll talk about that. See, Japan, China, of course we are following a good policy, but there's no substitute to US. Okay, so whatever our media is saying is good only. Okay, so I understand. I'm following. I closely follow that. Okay, so but impact is strong. US impact is strong on India. That is the reality. Reality is that accepting the reality and working is better. You can't say just because I've gone to Japan, things are okay. Okay, things, of course, it will take some time. We are doing the right thing, but impact is there. Okay, so we'll come to that later. Okay, so come back here. PLI scheme, why? Okay, one is side heading, Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India. But again, there is a negative aspect here. Atmanirbharata will come in if you become a manufacturing powerhouse, not a assembling powerhouse. Okay, but that's okay, Atmanirbharata. One is muted manufacturing and also working on manufacturing deficit. India should be able to increase its manufacturing exports through better value addition. Okay, integrating with global value chain and increasing global competitiveness. That is another aspect here. Obviously, jobs will get created because of PLI scheme. What jobs are getting created is another aspect. I think you got my point. But I will write, employment generation is happening because of PLI, no doubt about it. But if I have to challenge PLI, then comes the question, what kind of jobs? Jobs which are going to be easily replaceable is the question. Are you able to get this? So, but yes, jobs are getting created in the ancillary sectors in and around the bigger company. Okay, so therefore more manufacturing jobs. Export promotion. Enhance India's role in global supply chains by producing high value goods And then moving away from middle income trap requires complex manufacturing. And the initiating factor for complex manufacturing is obviously I need some schemes like PLI for initial boost and technology support. Is that okay? Now, that is okay. Now see, the difficulty comes. Obviously, we'll see if you're producing, suppose, well, let's say BrahMos. Okay, so BrahMos, of course, we've taken Russian technology earlier, but BrahMos is ours now. And most of the things which we have used during Pakistan war, it has promoted Atmanirbharata. I can say that. And India's defense budget in the next 5 years is definitely going to increase, defense manufacturing. No doubt about it. Huh? So, and India will also be an exporter of defense. This is what you can say. Will they trust? Yes. Our machines have worked, no? Will they trust means who will not trust when they are working? Simple logic. Who will not trust when they are working? They're working. They worked. No, it will work. It will work. That means you can take big bets on defense sector if you're an investor. Next 5 years, money will multiply. Why? So much of budget. And we are going to export also. And we are putting in a lot of research into it. Of course, you may say, sir, are we same as US? Obviously, no. Are we same as China? No. But yes, we are developing. And they will trust India. If the products work, everybody will trust. Simple logic. But you may say India is not the same India 15, 20 years back. So don't think that Indian products, no. But of course, some time. Okay. It's optimism. Bureaucrats should be more optimistic. Okay, fine. Yes. So electronics. So here basically achievements, when I look at achievements, this is little difficult area. Why it is difficult? Writing exports have increased, investments have increased is easy. But the question is how much they have increased. This is the difficulty area. For this, notes has to be prepared. For this, magazine or newspaper has to be read. For this, the data sheet is required. Are you able to get this? Otherwise, the answer will not be perfect. I think you're getting my point. So, somebody says achievements. Employment generation is an achievement. But how much employment generation approximately? Investment moved into the country, but approximately how much investments moved into the country? This is basically facts. Pharma and devices, world largest, third largest producer, 50% production is exported. Okay, so automotive PLI outlay of 25,000 crore attracted investments exceeding $8 billion, boosted EVs and auto component production. Now, some data is required to write this part. Are you able to get this? But writing exports have increased, telecom, automotive, we were able to export electronics and pharma exports. That is easy. Answer can be written. But if I want that half extra mark or 1 mark extra, some data, that means now comes questions, sir, how much data should we cram? So sectors of economy is a theme. And especially agriculture and manufacturing, if there are important schemes, I have to remember some data separately. This is what you should go ahead with this logic. Yes, tomorrow manufacturing is secondary sector, primary sector, there can be a specific question, so my data should be ready. Is that okay? Otherwise, of course, we can write also, but I think things are okay. Okay. So what else can be done with respect to PLI scheme? What else can be done is basically moving from becoming a better manufacturing hub, diversifying the base. Okay, so if you observe here, dynamic incentives, move from fixed term support to adaptive frameworks linked to global trends. So incentives based on performance. And then promote R&D and innovation. This is one more area, wherever you want, you can write it because we hardly spend anything on research and development. We're spending 1.25 and spending around 4% on education. China is spending 10% of their GDP on education. And we want to compete with China, no? At least we have to spend half of our GDP on education, right? So R&D spending is too less. So R&D. Another important aspect is simplifying applications and compliance to integrate MSMEs into the value chain. MSMEs, focus and integrating MSMEs, promoting R&D, expanding coverage, including labor-intensive sectors for broader employment impact. Now, this is basically why it is important is, obviously, because labor-intensive sectors are those which can create jobs. Simple logic. Okay, and China has lost its #1 position 5 years back in these sectors. But of course, India is not #1. Everybody thought India will do something, but we have not done anything in these labor-intensive sectors. Rather, instead of India, it is Vietnam, Ethiopia, Bangladesh. These countries started moving and becoming stronger in the labor-intensive sector. So India should work on these labor-intensive sectors. Timely disbursal and monitoring. Ensure digital transparent systems for faster payouts and outcome tracking. Is that okay? So this is what else has to be done. Clear till there? Yes. First of all, when we talk about fiscal health performance, now again, like the specific question, this is also a specific question. Outside exam hall, it looks easy. Okay, it looks easy. Like everybody says, this can be written well. But the thing is, this is not an easy question. Why? Because in the exam condition, because of the reason that you're asking an index and how it can be used as a tool for assessing fiscal performance of the states in India. Now, for such questions like the PLI, like this question, these questions can only be written if you read current affairs. Remember this, otherwise we can't write. Okay, so that means the only understanding from the previous paper to this paper, last 4 or 5 years paper and this paper is, I have to read some current affairs. I have to read some current affairs, including maybe a magazine. This is what you may say, sir, next year again, if it, nobody knows. But definitely these specific questions cannot be written without reading current affairs. That much is clear. Okay. Now, when we talk about FRBM, heard of FRBM? Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. Okay. What is the main crux of FRBM? Main crux of FRBM. Initially, by 2008, what is the target you have to achieve? What is the crux of FRBM? Fiscal deficit should be brought down to 3% of GDP. Revenue deficit should be made 0. This is the main crux. What does it imply? RD 0, FD 3% means what? What does it mean? What is the crux of this line? RD 0, FD 3%. Borrowing. Whatever you borrow should be spent on capital expenditure. That is the crux of the line. RD 0, FD 3% means if you are borrowing, your borrowing should be spent on capital expenditure or building assets. This is the line. This is the crux basically. FD 0 and FD 3 and RD 0. But of course, then 2012 plus, FRBM also has been extended to the states also. That means you also started putting up restrictions on states with respect to their fiscal deficit to the gross state domestic product. This is the evolution 2012. Then they also came up with effective revenue deficit concepts around 2011-12, ERD concepts. Okay, so what is ERD? Revenue deficit minus grants given by the center to states and UTs for capital purpose. This concept was also brought in. Then some more amendments were done, 2015, and they have come up with new guidelines or new targets for FRBM. Then came up with an encasing committee. Encasing committee talks about FRBM 2, if you remember. Okay, so FRBM 2, primary objective of FRBM 2 is what? Debt to GDP. Primary thing is debt to GDP. So when we talk about the general debt means what? Both, it is center, state and UTs put together. General debt. Center, state and UTs put together. Okay, so it should be how much? How much percentage of GDP? Center, state, UT put together is 60. Center 40 and the other states and UTs 20%. So overall 60. What is our debt to GDP around now? What is the debt to GDP? General debt. You can use the mobile and tell me. What is the general debt currently? No. General debt to GDP ratio. $57. Center. General debt. How much? Yeah, 80 plus. It went up to 83 also. Okay, so you are talking about 57. No. I'm talking about general debt means what? Center, states, UT put together. Okay, debt to GDP 81%. It has touched 83 also. Is it a good sign? Means definitely not. IMF also warned India. It said, be careful, India. Your debt has crossed 80. Slowly it will touch 100. Are you able to get this? So debt is one important factor. India was very confident. Now, some of the states, their debt to gross state domestic product is high. So debt sustainability is one important aspect which will tell the performance of states. So one is the revenue mobilization. How are you able to mobilize the resources? Then how are you spending your money? That means, are you spending more on welfare? Are you creating some assets? Then what is your debt sustainability? Can you sustain the debt? What is your interest payments you are doing in comparison to your gross state domestic product? Now, these kind of indicators will tell exactly the fiscal performance of a particular state. You can't say, okay, your FD is less, so therefore you are a high performing state. Your FD can be less because your revenues are more, or maybe your FD is less because you have spent less on unwanted expenditure. So now you're trying to identify specifically which one you are good, which one you are bad. That is what such indices will do. So I can take FD as a number, RD as a number. I can take debt to gross state domestic product as a number and say, okay, this state is doing okay, this state is not doing okay. Or just based on FRBM guidelines and the borrowings done by the states, you can say, okay, this state is better than that state. But the logic of fiscal health index is a little different, which has come up. Like Niti Aayog's logic is very simple here. Basically, Niti Aayog's logic is effectively I will check more efficiently and specifically on which all indicators a particular state is doing well, on which all indicators a particular state is not doing well. It is more practical and logical method. So, but see here, explain how fiscal health index can be used as a tool for assessing fiscal performance of states. In what way would it encourage the states to adopt prudent and sustainable fiscal policies? Got the point? Now, first of all, if I don't know what fiscal health index takes into consideration, then answer becomes difficult. That is why I call it as a specific question. Of course, I can guess that debt will be one factor. Okay, but you can't exactly say what factors. So here, if you see, Niti Aayog in Jan 2025 has come up with this fiscal health index. So it has come up with certain states which are struggling with high debts. So with high debts, poor expenditure and rising interest payment aggravating the fiscal stress. So some states, 20% is very less, 28, 30, 35% also, debt to gross state domestic product. So now the whole logic here is high debt levels, poor expenditure, as well as rising interest payment. This is increasing the fiscal stress. So therefore, this index basically serves as a parameter to check where there is problem. That is what it is. It is more prescriptive. It can identify where the problem is. And what are the main factors it will take into consideration for estimating the performance of state? This is what you learn from current affairs. At least if I know that these are the things that are there in the index, then we can build the answer from there. But if I don't know, then we will write more English. This is what will happen. We'll write more English. Debt is high, FD is high. Okay, we'll take random guesses. But otherwise, if I should be knowing this. So for example, one, this index takes quality of expenditure. What is the meaning of quality? Are you spending on building infrastructure? Are you spending on capital assets? Or are you spending on revenues or the day-to-day expenditures? This will indicate your quality of expenditure. Then revenue mobilization. So ability of states to mobilize revenues. Okay, so whole logic is very simple. Don't ask center for, of course, don't write like this. Okay, so don't ask center for transfers. Okay, so Finance Commission recommendations, you know. Okay, so from the transfers given by center to states have been decreased. And some of the central sector schemes, there are central sector schemes, centrally sponsored schemes. Earlier government was very clear, central government. We don't have so much of funds to spend more on central sector schemes, completely funded by the center. Government was saying this. Okay, so, and states should become independent and should be able to mobilize resources without depending much on central government transfers. So another important aspect is revenue mobilization. Fiscal prudence. Okay, so fiscal prudence talks about gap between government spending and income, focusing on gross fiscal deficit and revenue deficit as a percentage of GSDP, gross state domestic product. So it is basically talking about fiscal prudence, your capacity to mobilize resources, revenues, quality of expenditure, where are you spending money on infrastructure or day-to-day expenses, debt index. This evaluates the debt burden of a state by looking at its outstanding liabilities relating to its GSDP and ratio of interest payments to revenue receipts. This is same like every company we do. What is your current income? What is your current expenses? Okay, so for a country, if the interest payments are on a higher side, okay, it is like ready expenses, but you don't have proper revenue receipts. That means the financial health of that state or that company is bad. This is what it's going to check. That is what debt index is going to check. Debt sustainability, state's ability to manage its debt by comparing the growth rate with the growth rate of interest payments. Your interest payments are increasing. It's okay, provided your GSDP is also increasing. So if you observe, the developed world has debt to GDP ratios of what? How much? 100 plus is minimum. Okay, so 100 plus 150, 170. Are you able to get this? But why is that IMF is asking India caution? Why is IMF saying India caution at 83? Then IMF is not asking them to be cautionate enough. Your debt to GDP is already 130, 150, 170, 200. Then why is that caution not given to them then? Is there any logic behind it? So there are 2-3 indicators. Suppose if I'm borrowing more, I should have better infrastructure. I means taxpayer. Don't write like this. I'm just explaining. So taxpayer should have better infrastructure, better roads, better schools, because I'm paying for the interest payments. This is one aspect. 2, I should have good jobs. Good means not great. I should have some jobs, government schools, government hospitals running. This is all infrastructure. That means I component is increasing, C plus I plus G. Okay, I component is increasing in the form of infrastructure, roads, and many other things. And the other side, debt is also increasing, agreed. But if only debt is increasing to 83, 84%, but the I component is not increasing, infrastructure spending, or there is no gross capital formation happening. Got the point? That is a risk. That means most of the time, the money, the debt you are taking is going into freebies or welfare, and where taxpayers' money is going to be diverted. So this can affect the growth of the states. I think it is clear. Okay, so that is the reason debt is okay, provided there is a proportion with respect to your growth rate as well as your interest payments. Interest payments are increasing, but the state is not growing. Okay, is that clear? Understood till there? So what are the 4 factors? First of all, what are the factors here? 5 factors: quality of expenditure, revenue mobilization, fiscal prudence, debt index, debt sustainability. This is specific question. I should know at least 4 indicators at least to write the answer somewhat. Is that okay? Yes. So what is the benefit of doing it specifically instead of just checking FDs and comparing? One is, if you can see, unlike the metrics like FD, this index provides the view across revenue, expenditure, and debt. For example, you can see Madhya Pradesh scored well in quality of expenditure, but poorly on revenue mobilization. So MP problem with revenue mobilization, but when it comes to quality of expenditure, it was decent enough. So you are able to compare states properly based on these indicators. That is what happens. States leading in revenue mobilization, Goa, Telangana, Odisha, Maharashtra, set a benchmark for tax administration and resource generation. So these are the states where their tax to GDPs are on a higher side. That means revenue mobilization is on a higher side for certain states. Got the point right? Is that okay? So evidence-based policy making, by highlighting fiscal vulnerabilities, it guides policymakers on where the focus reforms are. So where you should be rationalizing your debt, how will you increase your tax to GDP ratios, or improving your capital expenditure, etc. So evaluation of states, there will be more transparency, and government transfers will also become more efficient. Central government's transfers will become more efficient if you're able to evaluate states based on these indicators. Is that okay? Understood? Clear till there? So one last question. How many of you have written mains in this class? Anybody who has written? Okay. No? All are freshers.
In UPSC CSE, current affairs isn't just important, it's the heartbeat of your preparation. But with news pouring in from every direction, multiple sources, and endless formats, it's easy to feel lost. The real challenge? Knowing what to study and what to skip. That's exactly why Vision IAS brings you the monthly Current Affairs Revision Program 2026, starting 23rd August, 2 p.m. Across 60 comprehensive classes, available both offline and online, we decode the most relevant national and international news for you, drawing from trusted sources like The Hindu, Indian Express, Economic Times, PIB, Yojana, and more. With expert guidance, personalized mentoring, and rigorous MCQ plus mains-oriented assessments, you'll build a rock-solid grasp over current affairs, streamlining your preparation for prelims, mains, and the interview stage. A stronghold over current affairs isn't optional, it's your way to succeed in UPSC CSE.
Okay. Some of you I know, I can recognize you. Okay, fine. Okay, let's move forward. Okay. Now, 2 difficult questions. For some it may be easy, but as far as my knowledge goes, these are difficult. The recent one which we have discussed is difficult, and this one is also little difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. Why? Because, obviously, because it is again specific. Is that okay? Yes. So see, this is basically a question related to Human Development Index and Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index with special preference to India. Why is Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index considered a better indicator of inclusive growth? First of all, what is inclusive growth? Including all the sections of the society, okay? That's all. Okay. Reduction of poverty, okay. Okay. What are the elements of inclusive growth? If I say inclusive growth, there are some elements which UNDP defines. UNDP defines inclusive growth based on certain elements. What are the elements? Employment generation, reduction of poverty, okay, rural-urban divide, financial inclusion. Like this, these are elements of inclusive growth which are defined by UNDP. Oh. Social factors, empowerment, etc. Okay, fine. See here, HDI and equality adjusted HDI are the two most important indices which measures human development. See, economic growth is a prerequisite for inclusiveness, but growth alone is not sufficient for achieving inclusive growth. This was an old question. Economic growth is a prerequisite for inclusiveness, but growth alone is not sufficient for achieving inclusive growth. Okay, so economic growth, when we talk about growth, growth is unidimensional. One single factor you take, that is GDP. But when I look at inclusive growth or economic development as such, it is multidimensional. You have several indicators which you take for measuring economic development. And one of the index which you take for measuring economic development is the HDI index or the Human Development Index. Is that okay? One of the index which indicates. And Human Development Index takes into consideration three main factors. What are the three factors it takes into consideration? Life expectancy, education, and per capita incomes. Is that okay? So these are the three factors it takes into consideration. Now the question comes up, when we take HDI rankings and measure India's performance, India is doing pretty okay. This is what you observe. But when we look at inequality adjusted Human Development Index, there are some problems and lacunae, especially with respect to certain indicators, like education. Okay, so there are huge gaps that are visible when it comes to taking inequality adjusted Human Development Index. Okay, so India's scores, when we look at, HDI improved from 2022 to 23. Okay, so but inequality reduced India's HDI by 30%, one of the highest losses in the region. This is what. So when we are taking inequality adjustments, then there are problems. So why should you take inequality adjusted Human Development Index? One important understanding here is it will indicate or reveal hidden inequalities. Okay, so which may not be directly visible in our HDI index. That is one reason. So one reason why you take inequality adjusted is, so it looks good. For example, HDI's reliance on average. So HDI is basically you're taking averages. But while HDI records an improved education static because children today are expected to stay in school for 13 years on average, up from 8 years in 1990, the average education index of India falls from 0.4 to 0.22 when discounted for inequality. So when I'm taking inequality as a factor, then we observe that the numbers are going down. Okay, so guides targeted policy making. So what is guiding targeted policy making? So same thing applies when we talk about poverty elevation also. There may be two different countries where the head count ratio may be same. Head count ratio, what of this word head count ratio? Head count ratio talks about how many people are poor. Okay, or what percentage of population are poor. That is what is head count ratio. But policies and schemes will be more effective when we calculate poverty gap ratios or squared poverty gap index. What is this? It is inequality adjusted poverty. Inequality adjusted poverty. That is what poverty gap ratio. What is the formula? What does poverty gap ratio talk about? Very difficult question. What is poverty gap? No? Poverty line minus average per capita consumption expenditure of all the BPL households in a month divided by poverty line multiplied by 100. You're measuring the gap, poverty line minus average monthly per capita consumption expenditure of all BPL households. Okay, divided by poverty line multiplied by 100. What are you trying to measure? See, in two different countries or in two different states or in two different localities, the head count ratio may be same. Head count ratio is same means 2 out of 10 people are poor, both cases. But some are very close to the poverty line, some are far away from the poverty line. Are you able to sense it? No? Okay, so those who are far away from the poverty line, their suffering is more. This is what is inequality. See, just because I've understood that, I'm able to find out, for example, what I'm trying to explain is, suppose this is the poverty line in Karol Bagh and Connaught Place. Okay. And there are 8 people. 8 people above the poverty line. This is Karol Bagh. And there are 2 below the poverty line. Okay. Here also same. 8 are above. 2 are below the poverty line. Okay. Both cases head count ratio is 20%. 20%. Okay. But situation is bad where? Our place. Why? Because you find more people closer to poverty line. Some are far, far away from poverty line. What is this? Far, far away is all about what? Inequality. Now you're trying to estimate based on averages is one. So you're estimating something based on averages. Okay. So one is averages. Another one is inequality adjustments. So here when I look at this, here basically both of them are more closer to the poverty line. Where should the government spend more? Government should spend more in the form of transfers if maximum chunk of population are farther away with respect to poverty line. Same with respect to education. Okay, so some are very good indicators, very close. Some are far away from the basic indicator. Then government has to spend more in those areas where the inequalities are on a higher scale. This is the logic basically. So always inequality adjustment is far, far better. Okay, see, it's not just about education. It can also be in terms of income. For example, here in India, men earn 82% of the labor income, whereas women earn just 18%. This is about the World Inequality Report. So while HDI provides a broad overview of development, how much we have improved in education, how much of you have improved with respect to standard of living, that is what you will be able to check. But unless and until inequality is adjusted, you will not be able to understand the distribution and where you have to spend more. This is what it is. Okay, so India witnesses a paradox of poverty where growth has risen alongside inequality in wealth and income. After 1990s, we are very confident that we have solved the problems of economic, we have crossed Hindu rate of growth. But at the same time, our growth has come at the cost of high income and wealth inequality. Of course, there are these indicators like Gini coefficient. Okay, so which are used for measuring, or Palma ratio, which used for measuring inequalities, right? So inequalities are increasing. To break from this, it is important that inequality is correctly captured by inclusion of income data. That is what it is done. Okay. That's all. We have only 7 questions here. And the crux is, for those who are preparing for next year, the crux is very simple. The earlier questions, so what are the main themes which we have seen? Every time the themes are same, as I mentioned. One is this theme which we have talked about, that is inclusive growth. Okay, then the theme of economic growth. Okay, then agriculture and allied. Agriculture and allied means includes food processing, land reform, supply chain, agriculture marketing, all that. Okay, and then specifically collecting data on sectors of economy. Now, specific questions are coming means you'll be more focused with respect to current affairs in this area. And of course, this was not specifically asked, but poverty and unemployment, these are developmental issues. Some macro problems in the economy. Macro problems in the economy. overall. So here currently macro problem is what? Protectionism, trade, okay, and their impact on maybe growth, their impact on inclusive growth. So these are the broader themes. Of course, we're going to narrow down the themes also, but these are the broader themes. And every year, 5 out of 8 questions, in fact, 8 out of 8 come, but there are some specific questions. Otherwise, 7 out of 8 questions generally pop up from these specific themes. And data collection, data sheet, which I keep telling, data sheet, but along with that, what becomes important now is our current affairs. This is an addition which you will add on for the next year. That is monthly magazine of current affairs. Monthly magazine of current affairs. Or if you're not reading monthly magazine, then obviously you have to read Mains 365. Now earlier it is like, okay, I've read newspaper, it's okay. But now it is better that you will read. Or you can use AI-driven current affairs. Vision AI-driven current affairs is also there. If you know to use it. You know it, how to use it. Or you can use Perplexity. Perplexity, ChatGPT. Fantastic, it's working. Okay, so you can use AI current affairs associated with Perplexity. Okay, so Perplexity or maybe ChatGPT, if you are giving, suppose the schemes of the government related to agriculture, which help to enhance the supply chain of agriculture. Suppose if you give that to Perplexity as a theme. Okay, it gives all the schemes related to agriculture at each stage and explains. This you will copy paste at one place. All schemes of food processing industry recently launched, and also identify those schemes where the budgets have been enhanced recently. This is what you should give. The prompt is, budgets have been enhanced recently, so it will come up with, yes, these are the schemes where budgets have been enhanced in food processing. That I will copy and paste it at one place. Are you able to get this? Very easy. You can get instant answer. It is taking 3 minutes for research, and it is giving it, you copy and paste it, revise it again and again. So for what all things I have to do? Sectors of economy. Agriculture, manufacturing, as well as services sector. Specifically food processing. Agriculture, go each area. For example, income support, what are the schemes? Inputs, what are the problems, what are the schemes? And also give the prompt, make it UPSC focused, and please explain it so that it could be understood by a 5th grade student. This is how you, if it is a concept. If it is a concept, use 5th grade student and you see it will give everything. And you can integrate it with Vision Current Affairs and magazine. If we can do that and copy paste and revise it again and again. Actually, what I did, I'll tell you, topper sheets have uploaded. Okay, UPSC syllabus have uploaded. Topper sheets, UPSC syllabus, our notes. You can upload, not just my notes, you can upload anybody's notes whom you like, you upload. And ask UPSC to segregate it topic-wise. Okay, topic-wise means chapter 1. Okay, mobilization of resources. These are the topper's answers related to mobilization of resources. Economic planning and development. These are the topper's answers related to economic planning development. Are you able to get this? Handwritten also you can. Okay, so you can do it in ChatGPT agent. Okay, so handwritten and ask it to prepare a PPT. It will give PPT. First try with sectors of economy. Latest data, latest schemes, and where budgets have been enhanced. Specific. So, if why budgets has been enhanced, that is important for prelim also. So that time waste will not be there. If you're reading a scheme, no, by where budget has been enhanced, that will become important for prelims also. Tomorrow that will have a double impact. So let it identify and then you can keep revising it again and again. And everything structured it is giving, and you have to integrate with toppers. Rishikesh Reddy's notes I have uploaded. You can upload any other topper notes of your choice. You like that topper or whatever it is. So upload and ask it to prepare a synopsis, and everything it will prepare. And then go back to previous questions and then see what can be done. I think that is the best way rather than reading a textbook. Of course, one textbook anyhow you would have read. Free version, Perplexity you use. Perplexity is free for Airtel users. No. Perplexity is, see, don't show it, you prepare it. It's not telling. Okay. It's not telling. Okay, that means you don't like ChatGPT. Okay, so. Okay, no, my question is what I believe ChatGPT can tell everything. My personal opinion. Okay, so some mistakes may be there, but it is better than human. Is my opinion. Of course, my opinion. Huh? If you ask me, sir, you are better, obviously ChatGPT. Okay, so there's no questions asked only. There's no questions asked because I can't see so much of data, but it can see, no. There may be 1 or 2 errors. It's okay. It will simplify your preparation. Okay, not only that, AI current affairs also. So in AI current affairs or vision, you can make your own notes from the current affairs. I don't know how you do it. You should be knowing it. You can prepare your notes there itself. I have a doubt with respect to a particular topic. I can copy paste. Then I will integrate it with notes. Or this AI-based current affairs, I'll integrate it with Perplexity, some current affair magazine. You can't read everything, you do it. Like that, have a synopsis. This is one. Second thing, listen. There is every line in my main syllabus. I will prepare a 15-pointer. If you don't have time, ask ChatGPT to prepare first, but you will eliminate it later. That means you will refine it later. Every line in syllabus in the mains, get a 15-pointer. 15-pointer? Got my point, right? So, mobilization of resources, 15-pointer. Scope, significance of food processing industry, 15-pointer. Agriculture marketing, problems, challenges, policies of government, 15-pointer. Understood, no? Okay, so 15-pointer, and then some useless content might come up. So that you have to eliminate and make it standard. See, things will work. Okay, so that's all for today then. Thank you.